Welcome to Miss Pam Reads. Today we are reading Ed and Ted and Ted's Dog Fred by Andy Griffiths, illustrated by Terry Denton. There we go. There's the title page. Ed and Ted and Ted's Dog Fred. There was a man. His name was Ed. He lived in a shed with his friend Ted. Ted had a dog. His name was Fred. Fred liked Ted, but he didn't like Ed. One morning, Fred jumped on Ed's bed. "Fred, get off my bed," said Ed. Fred just barked and bit Ed's head. "I'm fed up with Fred," said Ed. "I'm leaving this shed." Ed jumped in his car, which was red. "Ed," called Ted, "come back to the shed." But Ed just shook his head. Away he sped. Ted jumped in his car, which was also red. But Ted's car wouldn't start. The battery was dead. Ted's face went red. "Bother," he said. "I'll have to take the sled instead." Ted hitched up Fred to the front of the sled, which, by the way, was also red, and away from the shed sped Fred and Ted. Ted and Fred sped after Ed. Ted saw Ed's red car up ahead. "Faster, Fred," said Ted. All of a sudden, Ed stopped dead. There was a roadblock and a sign that read, "Stop! Do not drive! Big cliff ahead!" "Fred!" called Ted. "Stop the sled!" But Fred could not. On they sped. Ted and Fred smashed into Ed. Over the cliff, Ed plummeted along with Ted and Fred. They hit the water and sank like lead. Poor Ed and Ted's dog Fred. They were almost dead when they were swallowed by a whale called Ned. "Bother," said Ed. "Bother," said Ted. "Woof," said Fred, as they bobbed around in the belly of Ned. But the whale called Ned, who was overfed, blew Ed and Ted and Fred out of the hole on the top of his head. Up, up, up flew Ed and Ted and Fred, and then down, down, down they all did head. "Oh no," said Ted, "we'll end up dead." "Fear not," said Ed to his friend Ted, stretching a handkerchief over his head. "Hang on to me, Ted. Hang on to Ted, Fred. and down to the ground they parachute Ed. "Thank you, Ed," said Ted. "Thanks to you, we are not dead." "Woof," said Fred as he jumped up and licked Ed's head. Ed hugged Fred. Fred hugged Ed. Ted hugged Fred. Fred hugged Ted. Ed hugged Ted. Ted hugged Ed. And they lived happily ever after in their shed. Boy, you guys, that was a tongue twister of Ed's. Thank you for joining me for Miss Pam Reads. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want an update when a new story is posted. Thanks. Bye.